4:05 p.m. a fire has hit a mall in the Philippine city of Davao, gutting the building, and trapping dozens of employees. 3:10 p.m. The New York Times reports that U.S. President Donald Trump made very insulting comments about immigrants in a June White House meeting. 12:34 p.m. Tropical storm Tembin has battered the southern Philippines, causing flash floods and landslides that have claimed 120 lives just before Christmas. 11:56 a.m. Prison officials have sent former Peru President Alberto Fujimori to a local hospital following a severe drop in blood pressure. 11:56 a.m. Stories from around the world overnight. 10:17 a.m. President Donald Trump is reacting to reports about the retirement of FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe by retweeting falsehoods about McCabe's wife. 8:33 a.m. Miss America CEO Sam Haskell and other leaders in the organization have resigned after crude emails about past pageant winners were leaked to the media. 7:51 a.m. President Donald Trump is spending Christmas and the New Year at his favorite golf club in Florida. 7:51 a.m. Bob Givens, the animator behind such beloved cartoon characters as Bugs Bunny, Tom. 7:51 a.m. Thousands of Israelis have staged anti-corruption rallies in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to resign. 6:46 a.m. An Alpine chalet, described as having 124 beds, 22 bathrooms and unequal views, and used by Pope John Paul II as his summer vacation home, is up for sale. 6:32 a.m. President Donald Trump says he has returned the U.S. to the traditional Merry Christmas, but the celebrations have not varied from those under his predecessor. 6:15 a.m. American actor Matt Damon's father Kent has died after a long battle with a rare blood cancer. He was 74. 6:15 a.m. One of Britain's most remote overseas territories, Ascension Island in the South Atlantic, is looking for a police inspector to lead a small team of officers. 5:51 a.m. Rome's residents have taken to social media, including a parody account on Twitter, to lament the city's spindly Christmas tree, called the Mangy One. 5:51 a.m. Jordan Fieldstein, the manager of pop rock band Maroon 5 and brother of actor Jonah Hill, has died aged 40, reportedly from a heart attack. 5:51 a.m. Amazon's voice-activated computer service Alexa is joining the volunteers at NORAD to answer calls from children asking when Santa Claus will arrive. 5:51 a.m. A Coptic church in South Cairo has been attacked by hundreds of Muslim demonstrators, with its contents destroyed and 3 people injured, the diocese says. 5:51 a.m. The Sydney Symphony Orchestra has joined other major symphonies to cut ties with Charles du Toit since 4 women alleged UAL misconduct by the conductor. 3 a.m. The Trump administration's decision to provide weapons to Ukraine in its fight against separatists has angered Russia, which says it will escalate the conflict. 3 a.m. Americans planning to travel over Christmas within the country, especially in the Northeast, can expect ice and snow, weather forecasters say. 2:16 a.m. Macedonia says it's ready to give up its claims to Alexander the Great, which may resolve a 26-year row with neighbor Greece. 12:51 a.m. London Zoo was closed for the day after a fire broke out in a cafe and shop near the Animal Adventure section, killing an aardvark. 4 meerkats are missing. 12:32 a.m. An increase in ceasefire violations in eastern Ukraine has prompted Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron to urge adherence to a ceasefire agreement. 12:32 a.m. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev says the ruling party wants the ultimate victory of President Vladimir Putin at the presidential election in 2018. 11:10 p.m. More than 100 people have been killed in the southern Philippines by mudslides and flash flooding triggered by a tropical storm. 10:29 p.m. A famed Egyptian singer is going on trial for allegedly disparaging the river Nile and so hurting Egypt's name and its struggling tourism industry. 10:03 p.m. An aardvark is missing following a fire at London Zoo, which has been closed after a cafe and shop were burned. 9:38 p.m. Japan's 84-year-old Emperor Akihito at Tokyo's has drawn a large crowd to celebrate his birthday at the Imperial Palace ahead of his abdication date. 9:38 p.m. Russian officials say a U.S. decision to supply weapons to Ukraine will just prompt Kiev to use force in the East Ukraine conflict. 9:38 p.m. A collision between a bus and a truck in the Egyptian capital Cairo has left 13 people dead. 9:03 p.m. Police in Zimbabwe have arrested 2 former government ministers for alleged corruption committed during the regime of now ousted President Robert Mugabe. 6:58 p.m. Californians have had an evening light show thanks to the launch of a SpaceX rocket carrying satellites into orbit. 5:37 p.m. A bus has run off a bridge and plunged into a river in western India, killing at least 32 people. 4:33 p.m. Christians in Muslim countries will celebrate Christmas under tight security after the U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital outraged Muslims. 4:33 p.m. A U.S. appeals court has ruled that Donald Trump's travel ban targeting Muslim countries exceeds his authority and should never apply to people with strong U.S. ties. 11 p.m. U.S. President Donald Trump's attempt to ban transgender people from the military has been rejected by another appeals court. 1:45 p.m. Bitcoin has lost a third of its value in just 5 days, as investors sell off the cryptocurrency in an effort to lock in profits. After 1:45 p.m. Apple is facing a lawsuit for not disclosing sooner that it issued software updates that slowed older model phones, resulting in people buying newer iPhones. 1:45 p.m. A death note and several guns have been found at the home of a former Marine who wanted to carry out a Christmas Day attack on San Francisco's Pier 39. 12:40 p.m. Video from the derailed Amtrak train in Washington state shows the engineer did not appear to be using any personal electronic device before the crash. 10:58 a.m. At least 8 symphony orchestras across the globe have severed ties with disgraced conductor Charles Dutoit in the wake of UAL assault accusations. 10:58 a.m. The first astronaut to fly freely in space using a jetpack, Bruce McCandless, has died at the age of 80. 10:49 a.m. North Korea faces tougher sanctions following its most recent missile tests, with the UN Security Council unanimously approving the measures. 9:50 a.m. U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis says diplomacy with North Korea stands the best chance of success if America's words are backed up by a strong military. 9:20 a.m. Iraq border guards have come under fire from within Syria, with Shiite paramilitary groups joining the border force to bolster numbers. 6:59 a.m. Israel is quitting the UN's cultural agency, saying that UNESCO is trying to disconnect Jewish history from the land of Israel. 6:59 a.m. A media report says a probe into Russian meddling into the U.S. election is reportedly asking controversial Donald Trump aide, Steve Bannon, to testify. 6:05 a.m. The massive U.S. tax overhaul and a bill securing government spending has been signed into law by President Donald Trump. 5:49 a.m. 2 trains have reportedly collided near Vienna, injuring 17 people. 5:43 a.m. Dozens of people are hurt after a Spanish train crashed into a buffer near Madrid. 3:06 a.m. Japan is expected to record the lowest number of births ever this year, as the number of childbearing-aged women declines. 1:03 a.m. After a regional election exposed the diversity of views in Catalonia, Spain's Prime Minister says he expects a new era based on dialogue to come. 12:11 a.m. The UN has blasted Australia's treatment of about 800 refugees who are still in a precarious situation on Manus Island, telling it to fix the mess it created. 11:17 p.m. Markets in Asia have risen after the release of positive U.S. economic data, but the result of the Catalonia election has weighed on European stocks. 11:17 p.m. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam says she is accountable to both the Hong Kong public and Beijing, but would not mindlessly obey China's communist government. 11:17 p.m. Bitcoin has lost a third of its value in the past week following warnings about investing in the volatile and unregulated market. 9:56 p.m. Mahmoud Abbas says the United States is no longer an honest mediator in the peace process due to its recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. 8:25 p.m. A bomb has exploded outside a court in Athens, but Greek authorities say there are no reports of any injuries. 7:23 p.m. Analysis of data provided by a U.S. cybersecurity firm shows Russian hackers tried to access the email inboxes of at least 200 reporters around the world. 7:11 p.m. North Korea has attacked the United States' new national security strategy, saying it seeks the total subordination of the whole world. 7:11 p.m. One of 2 U.S. teens charged over the Slender Man stabbing of a classmate has been sentenced to 25 years in a mental hospital. 7:11 p.m. A suicide car bomb has exploded outside the police headquarters in the Maiwand district of Afghanistan, with at least 6 officers killed. 4:58 p.m. Indonesian President Joko Widodo is gathering his cabinet in Bali to assure visitors that the island is safe from the Mount Agung volcano. 4:17 p.m. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his cabinet have endorsed a record $860 billion budget for the 2018 financial year. 3:15 p.m. Fire crews have gained ground in a massive blaze raging north of Los Angeles and evacuation orders have been lifted in California's Santa Barbara County. 3:15 p.m. New Zealand pop star Lorde says she is reconsidering a concert in Israel next year after a backlash from fans. 2:39 p.m. The Miss America organization's CEO, Sam Haskell, exchanged emails with a writer that included defamatory comments about past winners, The Huffington Post says. 2:39 p.m. The Olympic torch relay in South Korea has been rerouted to avoid the tragic scene of a building fire that killed 29 killed in the central city of Jecheon. 1:58 p.m. Saudi Arabia has lifted the ban on electronic devices on its airlines for passengers traveling to the United Kingdom. 1:47 p.m. Facebook and Universal Music Group have signed a deal that will let Facebook users share videos that have the record label's music in them. 1:47 p.m. Every Christmas an 87-year-old U.S. woman displays more than 1,400 miniature nativity scenes in her home which she invites school and church groups to enjoy. 1:01 p.m. All 58 victims of October's Las Vegas mass shooting died of gunshot wounds, a coroner says. 12:17 p.m. Cuba says Raul Castro will remain the Communist Island's president until April 19 before handing power to a successor. 12:17 p.m. Former Trump press secretary Sean Spicer has criticized Tom Hanks for saying he would not want to attend a White House screening of his new film. 11:27 a.m. The U.S. Congress has passed stopgap legislation to avoid the government from closing down at midnight on Friday. 11:27 a.m. The U.S. Olympic family failed to protect athletes who were sexually abused by the gymnastics team. Dr. Larry Nassar, the U.S. Olympic Committee CEO says. 10:54 a.m. President Donald Trump has visited wounded U.S. veterans and awarded a Purple Heart to a soldier injured earlier this year. 10:54 a.m. The American Ballet Theatre says it is investigating an allegation of UAL misconduct against principal dancer Marcelo Gomez. 10:54 a.m. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has made a surprise pre-Christmas visit to U.S. troops serving in Afghanistan. 10:39 a.m. Donald Trump has had a victory after a federal judge threw out a lawsuit claiming the president violated the U.S. Constitution by accepting foreign payments. 9:52 a.m. Three opera singers and a classical musician have accused world-famous conductor Charles Dutoit of UAL assault. 9:45 a.m. Separatist parties in Catalonia have won an absolute majority in the first elections since a controversial independence referendum in Spain's north. 9:36 a.m. Fears about a suspicious vehicle parked near Buckingham Palace were unfounded as police in London reopen roads in the vicinity. 9:18 a.m. The UN Security Council is preparing to vote on a resolution to impose tough new sanctions on North Korea. 8:22 a.m. A U.S. woman has filed a police report alleging she was raped by Rocky actor Sylvester Stallone 27 years ago. 8:02 a.m. At least 23 people are hurt after a large quake rattled Iran, just a day after a fatal earthquake in Tehran. 8:02 a.m. Stories from around the world overnight. 6:36 a.m. The governor of U.S. state Minnesota is defending the investigation into an Australian woman's death by police shooting, after her family expressed concerns. 6:36 a.m. About 200 people have attended the funeral of Cardinal Bernard Law, who resigned as Archbishop of Boston after covering up UAL abuse of children by priests. 6:20 a.m. Australia abstained from voting with a majority of UN members against the US over the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. 4:13 a.m. A fault in translation has seen Prime Minister Theresa May called Madam Brexit while in Poland. 1:36 a.m. Scientists say they've discovered a type of cell which appears dead after antibiotics but then reanimates, and may be key to the fight against drug resistance. 1:36 a.m. The U.S. has witnessed a rise in drug overdose deaths, largely made up of a spike in opioid-related deaths. 12:21 a.m. The man accused of a terror attack on a London mosque that left 1 dead and 11 others hurt has pleaded not guilty. 12:21 a.m. The men charged over the bombing murder of Maltese anti-corruption journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia have been sent to trial. 12:21 a.m. A series of intimate portraits of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been released to celebrate their recent engagement. 12:21 a.m. A New York City man says his father-in-law played on his phobia of Tasmanian devils when he waved a toupee at him during a funeral. 12:21 a.m. Benjamin Netanyahu has attacked the UN, as the General Assembly prepares to vote on the United States' recognition of Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. 9:41 p.m. 4 people are reportedly dead and 140 have been rescued after a Philippines passenger ferry capsized in bad weather.